Oh,
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead now, Meredith. Go ahead.
welcome to the Sales Logic Expert Exchange. This is going to be a dynamite show today. We have the Larry Levine, the king of selling from the heart, really the king of sales, joining us today. And Larry and I were just about to get into a really good conversation when I needed to pull back. So, Larry, I want to start by just giving you a couple of minutes to tell the audience about yourself, more importantly, a little bit about your journey and why you are so passionate. And I don't feel like passionate is a big enough word to describe how you feel about what you do and the mission that you're on.
Oh, well, thank you. We're going to have a great time, and I've been looking forward to this. And just a little backstory, and I'm a massive believer in this. Y'all have to excuse me. I was on the road all last week, lost my voice, came home sick. So at least there's a screen between all of us.
Yes.
So I'll do it. If you hear coughing and hacking, just please bear with me on this. But I'm just a massive believer. You really don't know someone till you know their backstory. And I think if everyone understood my backstory, you'll really get a good glimpse into why I believe in what I believe is. I came out of a very chaotic, hectic, crazy sales channel. I sold copiers in Los Angeles my whole entire life. Something highly commoditized, very transactional, but I built a massively successful career based on a couple things. I brought my true authentic self to the forefront. I learned how to build relationships. I learned how to bring value like none other. And I brought an experience that was completely different that changed the paradigm of how people thought about copier salespeople. And what it did is it translated into sales sustainability, a very profitable and lucrative career. I had a couple copier dealerships. I had a good exit. But I bring this to the forefront because at 50 years old, my life changed. And at 50 years old, I found myself without a job, believe it or not. And that was almost 10 years ago. And I had to determine, what do I do in the latter part of my career? And I had never publicly spoken, never written a book, never started a podcast, never written an article. I was a sales guy. But what I did is I doubled down on myself. And I wanted to bring something to the forefront that I wish would have been brought to me throughout the decades. And that was how to build true, authentic relationships, how to bring meaningful value, how to bring something different to the forefront. So that's what I've done. I've done that over the last decade. I believe success happens when I contribute to a greater cause. That's what I'm doing. I'm elevating the game of the sales world, getting salespeople to think differently, getting leaders to think differently, getting leaders to really think about their people and how they take care of their clients. That's the mission I'm on, Meredith.
Hey, Larry.
Fantastic.
Larry, I got a question for you. What does authenticity look like in sales?
So here's what's interesting, and I'm going to give you, this isn't PhD stuff because I have no doctoral in any of this. I don't even have a master's degree in any of this. It's just street savviness. Is I believe this: we're all authentic human beings. It's how we choose to carry ourselves. And when I look at authenticity and view authenticity out in the sales world today, is I think of one word, and that's congruency. Does the walk match the talk? The way you carry yourself, whether that be online or face to face, does that match? The way you carry yourself out in the community, does that match the way you carry yourself out in the professional world? And I've always said this: you get what you get with me. I've learned over the decades to really hone in on what makes me me, because I've gone on this journey to connect with myself and not pay attention to what's going on around me. I just want to pay attention with what's going on with me and make sure that what I bring marries. So in other words, if I take a look at who I am, I want that to be the same viewpoint that people have of me based on how I carry myself. Again, it goes back to this: authenticity is congruency. It's how we choose to carry ourselves.
Yeah, actions match words. So, Larry, let me ask you this. Why does authenticity matter in the sales process? And why did it matter in your journey of being, I love that you are a copier salesman. I mean, I don't think that that's a tougher road that, I mean, if anybody's going to listen to this advice, they need to listen to it, because that's about as hard a sales job as you can possibly have. But why does authenticity matter in the sales process?
I think it's going to come down to one word: it's trust.
Mhm.
Is trust is at anemically low levels. I learned this decades ago. And the reason why I bring this up and the reason why I believe authenticity is so important is I remember early on in my career. So I'm going to take everyone back. This is like in my late 20s. I have a very curious mindset and I love asking questions. And so early on in my sales career, I would ask prospective customers, I would even ask some of my clients, what do you like? What do you don't like about salespeople? And pretty soon I was getting a long laundry list of the things they liked, the things they didn't like. And there's no rocket science behind any of this. I just flipped it on its head. Everything they didn't like, I just threw that out the window. Everything they liked, I doubled down on it. And so when I start thinking about sales and I start thinking about what's going on out there, it's not, I always say it's not that difficult. We make this thing a lot harder than it is. And here's what's interesting. I always ask leaders this, Meredith. Do you believe your salespeople are in the people business and relationship building business? And 100% of the time, I get the answer of yes. Then here's my next question is, what are y'all doing to help coach and guide salespeople to build people skills and relationship building skills in a world that doesn't trust salespeople? I bring this up because I learned this early on in my sales career. If I just double down on my people skills, if I just double down on my relationship building skills, if I shine the light on other people, that's what they wanted. I didn't have to, I just reversed engineered all of this. I'm not a complicated guy, none whatsoever. I just doubled down on the things that people really wanted from salespeople. And that's all, and that's what I focused in on.
Larry, why have we overcomplicated sales? Because we were talking before the show how really sales is it it's far more simplistic than we realize. But why do we overcomplicate it when you're talking about this whole thing of just having an authentic relationship and a conversation?
Uh, I think me personally, I think it goes back to how salespeople have been trained. I look back at how I was trained. It was all product centric. It was talk about products, talk about features, talk about the company. And I'm not saying there's nothing, I mean, there's a time and a place for all of this, but no one really wants to talk about that. They can find anything they want about, especially today, they can find anything they want to ever find out about your product and your company and all of that on the internet. But what they can't find out is what makes you tick and how you can help them. They can't find that out on the internet. It's going to require you having a conversation. It's
Yeah.
just, and I remember early on, and I struggled with this mightily. I struggled with this until I asked somebody for help one day. And I said, hey, I'm stuck in a rut. Can you help me out? And I'm being really simple when I say this. I go, person gave me the best advice ever. Stop acting like a salesperson. They already know you're a salesperson. Stop acting like a salesperson. Now, as silly as that sounds, it's really simple in its nature. They already know you're in sales. So how about if you set that aside and you just get to know who they are as a person and the issues and the challenges they have and what are they dealing with? And it all goes back to just, I learned this a long time ago. We just shine the light on other people and make them feel really comfortable with you. They will soon become really comfortable. And when they become comfortable, they will open up and share their business secrets. Now, I learned this decades ago. And there's no rocket science. There's no rocket science that I know of that's selling copy machines. I mean, heck, I sold things that broke all the time in the most inopportune times. But I just learned that if I set aside the product and if I set aside all that and I really got to know people, they would soon open up. They would open up and they'd tell me everything. It goes back to two things I think salespeople struggle with. How fast can I connect to somebody? How fast can I relate to somebody? And we're just not teaching salespeople how to do this.
I also think that we are not a society of patience anymore. And what you're talking about takes patience. I mean, it takes the idea that I am going to invest in somebody else before I ask them to invest, in me. And, the other thing I think is, when Mark asked the question, how did sales become so complicated? I think it is sales training. I mean, I think you're right, Larry. And I think what happened with sales training was it has to be sexy, right? There has to be something new and exciting. And it always made me laugh that I was typically being trained by people who never sold, right? Like you very
Yeah.
rarely had a sales trainer that was doing the exact same thing that you were doing. So my question is, you know, here I am, I'm listening to you, I get it. And every way that you are talking about selling is so much more an enjoyable way to sell. It's about going out into your community or your territory and saying, I really care about people and I want to help them, I want to listen, I want to learn, and I want to help them build a better business. I mean, that's it. But I got a sales manager breathing down my throat, or I've got bills to pay at the end of the month. How do you balance that patience with selling in the right way?
Oh, it's such a good question. I think it comes down to discipline and consistency. And the reason why I say this is you hit on a word the second ago, and I want to bring to the forefront patience.
Mhm.
You got to be able to be patient enough to play the long game, but also be patient enough to play the short game. And here's where I'm going with this. And I mean, when I started in sales, it was in the late 80s. I was taught, you got to sell something this month and you got to look at things in 30, 60, and 90-day increments. I get all of that. Something tells me that's still happening today. However, if I'm not consistently doing certain things, then I know what's going to happen. I'm going to ride the roller coaster of everything. So what I did is I just doubled down on the simple things. And here's where I'm going with this is I just doubled down on having conversations every day. I knew that if I had a conversation every single day, it doesn't matter the type of conversation. It could be a personal conversation, it could be a business conversation, it could be conversations with multiple people inside companies. I just knew that if I had conversations every single day, things would start to happen. I knew again, some people may not buy into this. That's okay. But I knew that if I consistently and with discipline started conversations every single day, I knew that things would start happening. And I was willing to play the long game with this, where I don't think a lot of people are taught to play the long game. They're taught, what are you going to sell this month? What are you going to sell next month? What are you going to sell this quarter? And you have all this transactional speak that starts happening all the time. And people can sense it.
Mhm.
And it's that sixth sense, right? And again, we all have five senses. We've all been taught. Well, the sixth sense that people are aware of is when you walk in with commission breath and you're walking in with transactional speak, people sense that because you go, man, I haven't had a sale in 3 weeks. I haven't had a sale in 30 days. Guess what? It took me 6 months to make my first sale back in the 80s. 6 months. But once I figured it out, I go, I'm going to double down on all this. And I just held myself accountable to do certain things. And those certain things are, I had to start conversations every single day.
Larry,
Can I just jump in here and I just
Yeah.
want to say that was gold, audience. That was gold. If you take nothing else from this, it is that. It is that. It is the, you know, we all have that anxiety when the phone doesn't ring or an email doesn't drop through and it's been a couple of days and you haven't gotten a lead. But if you can take action and just take the action of having the conversation, that discipline, it's like a snowball. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually it rolls downhill and everything will come in. That was really gold.
Hey, thank you. I got to play on something. I just want to let people know this, that I'm just going to take people back 10 years ago. And why I believe this works is at 50 years old, when I found myself without a job, all of a sudden there's no income coming in.
Yeah.
Zero, big fat zero income coming in 10 years ago. I played the same thing in my mind that I did back in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. I got to start conversations every single day. I got to get out there. I got to network. I got to share what's in my head and my heart with people. And I did it every single day. Guess what? I had to go out and find money, just like salespeople got to go out and find sales. But the hardest thing for salespeople to understand is, how do I open up a conversation with someone that may not be a sales conversation, but I have to be conversationally competent enough to take that conversation and spin it into a business conversation. The reason why I'm bringing this up is 10 years ago, heck, I didn't even know Mark 10 years ago, and I didn't even know you, Meredith, 10 years
That's
ago.
right.
Nobody knew who I was. I had no money coming in, zero, nothing. But I had to double down on certain things, and I just doubled down on consistency and discipline. And I just got this message out, and I opened up conversations every day, and I was willing to play the long game with this. And I wasn't playing the short game. I go, if I'm going to sustain a career doing this, I can't look at things the minute I have a conversation with Mark Hunter, I'm going to be all over Mark for a sale. Or the minute I get into a conversation with Meredith, man, if Meredith doesn't buy something from me, I'm just going to have a freaking heart attack. I just detached from all of that, and I just got my message out there. Same thing with salespeople, what they must do today. That's just my belief on this.
You know, Larry, you're speaking so much wisdom there, and you didn't get into the panic. And this is what so many salespeople do. They get into the panic and they chase the shiny object. You, zero income, zero business, you had every excuse to chase the shiny object, but you stayed with discipline and consistency. I know that's something that Meredith, you talk a lot about. We talk a lot about it on our podcast and our mastermind group, the need to be consistent and disciplined. Larry, what's some advice that you would share with the audience in terms of how to be disciplined, how to be consistent, and be able to get these conversations going?
I'm a simple guy, and here I'm going to share this because I think we're products in the environments we were raised in. So I was raised with a highly relational mom. I was raised with a rocket scientist for a father, literally a propeller head. And I just smashed this together. So I go, okay, if I can bring what I learned from my dad, which is practice, plan, prepare, to the forefront, and I can marry this with what I learned from my mom, which was how to build relationships, I think I might be onto something. So what I did is I held myself accountable. And this is something I think salespeople struggle with. I go, I'm not going to overcomplicate anything because my dad overcomplicated everything. If I'd ask him a question, I mean, it was mind blowing. I'd be there for an hour and I go, Dad, all I want to know is 2 + 2 = 4. I don't
Right.
want to know, right, why 2 + 2 = 4. And an hour later, you've got my head spinning. Just give me the answer. Keep it simple. So the reason why I bring this up is I learned early on in my career, if I can't do the simple things correctly, I'll never be able to do the big things correctly. So I'm just going to hold myself accountable to simple things. And the simple things are, I'm going to do a certain number of calls every day. I'm going to engage in a certain number of conversations every day. I'm going to have certain number of connections every day. Just little things, just absolutely little things. And I know that if those things just keep multiplying over time, they're going to lead to big things. And I learned this early on that if, the more complicated things got, that was fine. But what I did is I just doubled down on starting conversations. I just held myself accountable to this. Can I start one conversation? I believe if you're brand new in sales, you can start one new conversation a day.
How would you go about that? If you
Pardon
were
me?
How would you go about doing that if you were new to sales? You have no business, you have brand new territory, new in your job. How would you start those conversations?
First thing, here's the first thing I would do. And again, please don't hold this against me, people who are watching this, but right, I would lean into my network. If there's something that I learned now that I wish I would have learned in my 20s, is lean into my network. And I'm going to share something with you. And I'm actually coaching and mentoring one of my son's really good friends, brand new into sales, brand spanking new into sales, financial services, believe it or not.
Ooh, that's a hard go.
Right? At 29 years old, 29, now he's 30, brand new into sales. And I asked him to do this, just work on building your network. Work on building your network and calling the people in your network that you already know and sharing with them what you do and how they might be able to help you by introducing you to people that they know. And it's the soft way into a conversation. But if I was brand new into sales, I'd be leaning into my network. I'd be leaning into my friends, my community, people that I knew, people that I've used to work with, people that I went to school with. all these past people in my network, I'd be leaning into them. I'd be picking up the phone one after another, and I'd be calling them saying, hey, this is what I'm doing right now. Can you help me out? Would you be willing to help me out? Can you introduce me into 5 people that you know that I might be able to have a conversation with? Not a business conversation, just a conversation. Would you edify me? Would you help me out? Would you be willing to do that? And that's the first thing I would be doing. Now, again, it's going to go against the polar grain of a lot of sales managers out there that are probably going to look at me going, I'm a box of rocks. But if salespeople can really hone in on how to have conversations like this, it's going to help them. I call these warm friendlies. If salespeople can have conversations with warm friendlies and share with them what they do, how they do this, those warm friendlies are going to allow them a little bit of grace. And then once they start practicing how they have these types of conversations, then they can pick up the phone with confidence and have those conversations with people who don't know them. It's my thought.
I love what you're talking about there. And there's something powerful because trust, that's one of the things you really do. You create a trust. In fact, both of your books, you know, selling in a post-trust world, so key, so critical. How does all this translate to trust? And does trust then translate into more sales?
Without trust, things slow down. With trust, things speed up. And what's really interesting about this is I came up with a simple philosophy around trust, and it really doesn't matter if you're brand new to sales, if you're well tenured into sales. As I remember, I had a dear friend of mine say, well, you got to be able to coach people around selling from the heart. And selling from the heart to some people might be warm, fuzzy, pixie sticks and rose petals type thing. But you got to be able to help salespeople drive revenue and profit. You got to be able to help executives drive revenue and profit with your message around selling from the heart. How are you going to do this? And what does selling from the heart really do? And I said, it builds trust and credibility in a world that sorely needs it. So whether you're young in sales, whether you're at midpoint in your career in sales, or whether you're well tenured in sales, we're all vying for trust. What I've done is just come up with 4 pillars that I believe salespeople are really lacking in, that's preventing them from building trust. And if salespeople could latch on to how to really build an authentic relationship, learn how to bring meaningful value to the forefront, learn how to bring an inspirational experience like none other and be disciplined with it, you will build trust. It doesn't matter if you're brand new in sales or if you're at your midpoint or you're a well-tenured veteran, which I believe well-tenured veterans are the most vulnerable when it comes to all of this. But this is just street savvy stuff. By the way, I practice what I preach. This is how I built this out. This is how I built selling from the heart from scratch. And this is how I've built this into something that's really cool, is by understanding how to break down these 4 pillars and then be able to coach somebody really simple on, hey, guess what? I'm doing this just as well as anyone else can. It's simple. Just build authentic relationships. We're just not coaching people on how to do it. I don't believe
Well,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was going to say, speaking of that, Chad, one of our listeners, Chad, popped in and wanted to know if you could talk a little bit more about how you open conversations. I love this question because I think that's where we as salespeople get stuck, right? Like if we could start the conversation, we can flow the rest of the conversation. But the hardest part, it's like the first sentence in writing a book. The first sentence is really the hardest. So talk a little bit more about how you open conversations.
Oh boy. Again, this is going to go against the polar grain on all of this, but Chad, I love the question, is when I open up a conversation with somebody, again, they already know I'm in sales. Now, granted, some of you might be going, well, yeah, I have a podcast and I've written a couple books. It's easier for you to open up conversations. True, but I was doing this before in sales. I'd say, so I'll use Meredith, I'll use you as an example. In fact, I'll use Chad as the example. I'll use Chad's name. Hey, Chad, I'm super grateful for our time together. Now, I got to preface this. Is this a brand new conversation or is this a scheduled meeting?
Let's assume it's brand new.
It's brand new.
And then we'll do a scheduled.
Okay. So if I'm picking up the phone, by the way, I've had people on LinkedIn poke holes at this and really blast me for about what I'm ready to say. But I just believe in this and I know it works. I've seen it work. Is Chad, let's just say you're an executive of a company, right? You're a senior level leader. I call you, you happen to pick up the phone. Chad, in working with executives just like you over the last 90 days, these are the things that we've been discussing. These are the things that we've been sharing as it relates to what executives are working on. I find executives are working on these 3 issues. Issue 1, issue 2, issue 3. Hey, Chad, I'm just curious, any of these resonate? That's literally how I'd open up calls. And I've had people go, well, you're not asking for their time. You're not saying, hey, this is a cold call, all this. I'm getting right to the point. And the reason why I figured this out, executives have a short window of time. They want you to get to the point. I'm just getting to the point. I'm just saying, hey, Chad, in working with executives just like you, so I'm letting Chad know that I'm working with executives just like him. And over the last quarter, here's been some of the things we've been speaking about, these 3 points. And then I'm just going to ask, hey, Chad, any of these hit your radar screen? No, not really. Interesting. What might be hitting your radar screen right now? This goes back into confidence, right? This goes back to building your confidence, delivering a clear, concise message. I just believe executives want you to get to the point real fast. They don't want the cutesy, the way salespeople open up calls. Hey, can I have 27 seconds of your time? Can I have 30 seconds of your time? Hey, by the way, yeah, this is a cold call. Am I interrupting you? All the stuff. You're taking 30 seconds already, and they're already going, man, how can I get off the phone? But I just found the faster you can get to business, the faster they're going to open up. It's my 2
Yeah,
cents on this.
what I love what you said there is you're not only getting directly to the point, you're getting to the pain point. I mean, I think the worst mistake you can make in sales is not recognizing the fact that you're taking somebody's time. And if you waste an ounce of it, I got on a podcast the other day that somebody really told me to listen to. And the first 15 to 30 seconds, the host was talking about where she had shopped to buy an outfit and how great that outfit was. And I turned it off after 30 seconds because I thought, I don't have time to, I'm so not interested in what you have on. Now, the information after that could have been incredible. It could have been life-changing. It could have been exactly what I needed to hear, but I wouldn't go there because she wasted 30 seconds of my time talking about what she was wearing. So I think it is definitely one of the biggest, biggest mistakes that you can make in sales.
Well, I want to play this because, the word trust comes up. You got to be able to build trust really fast with somebody. And I found out when talking with executives, when talking with senior leaders, the fastest way to build trust is to let them know that you've been speaking with people just like them, helping them to solve issues that they're talking about. Which means if I'm a salesperson today, I don't care what line of work y'all are in. If I'm a salesperson today, I'm sitting down with my customers, clients, however you want to refer to them, and I'm asking them, what are the issues and challenges you got going on right now? What are you working on? What are your goals? What are your initiatives? What are your challenges? What are your roadblocks that you're working on right now? And I'm making a mental note and I'm writing these down on a sheet of paper because those are your cues when you're out prospecting.
Mhm.
Call people who you're not working with and share with them that you're working with people just like them. Here's the things that we're working on together. And then just ask a simple question. Curious, any of these hit home with you? Any of these resonate with you? And again, this is uncomfortable because it probably goes against the norm, but they're not. Because the hardest part is to get somebody in a conversation. So what if they tell you, no, I'm not, these 3 things you just mentioned, be prepared. They're probably going to say something. They could say no, they could say yes. If they say
Larry,
yes, which one? If they say no, then I'm just curious. What are the issues you might be working on? There's nothing wrong with that.
Larry, I love what you're saying there. And you especially shot down that whole thing. Hey, can I have 27 seconds of your time? All those stupid, they may be cute, but they're not going to develop any business. And I love it how you're saying you come to it and addressing an issue that they're having. And I love that. You might say it's almost a bluntness, but it's not a bluntness. It's having a conversation. I love it. Hey, we got another question that came in. Somebody asked, hey, if you're a solopreneur basically, and you kind of work from home, how do you network? How do you have those conversations? I got an answer, but I bet you got an answer.
I want to jump in here before Larry answers. I love that people are asking questions and chiming in. I mean, how great is it to have a forum where every burning question you've got about sales, you can bring to a group, you can talk about it, you can have a conversation, you can get good answers, you can know exactly what to do. And that is what this exchange is about. And that is what the Sales Logic Mastermind is about. If you're finding value in this, boy, this is just the beginning. All right, jump in on the networking.
So when you say whoever asked that, by the way, great question. I would say you're a solo entrepreneur, but you're a solo entrepreneur calling into what kind of market? That's a
Yeah. Again, so you would just call into your market. I mean, I would say, hey, go out on LinkedIn and find people who you are looking for and begin having conversations with them.
So
right?
I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, by the way, everyone, I'm a solo entrepreneur. Yeah, I have a team at Selling from the Heart, but guess what? I started out as a solo entrepreneur. It was me, right? It was me and my podcast partner, Daryl, but I was a solo entrepreneur getting this message out. But I knew that my target market were sales leaders, sales managers, chief sales officers. So I was networking and I was building a network and communicating and educating those people. That's how I was building out my network as a solo entrepreneur. Then I took it one step farther. I wanted to know who are thought leaders, who are people out in the marketplace that are educating people just like the people I want to get in contact with. And I just started building a network. Here's what was really interesting. I'll tell you a funny story about this, but it plays on this solo entrepreneur thing. So I remember about 8 or 9 years ago, Daryl goes, Larry, what the heck are you doing? Why are you networking like this? You're not even networking with some of our target market. And I said, watch. And then a couple years later, he would tell me, yeah, I see what you were doing. Is if I'm a solo entrepreneur and I'm calling into a certain space, then I want to find out who are all those ideal prospects? Who are the titles of those people that I'm calling into? And I'm going to start networking with all of those people. And then I'm going to find out who are the influencers and who are the thought leaders. And I'm going to start connecting to those people. And then I want to find out who are the centers of influence in my marketplace? Who are the movers and shakers? I'm going to connect to those people. And just to me, that's how if I'm a solo entrepreneur, that's how I'd be doing this.
You know, I also want to add though on that for a solo entrepreneur, you need to understand everything is an opportunity to network. My greatest business connection, the greatest connection that I have made in my business life that's also extended in my personal life happened because a dog ran away to my house and kept staying at my house when they really belonged to my neighbor. And we built a connection and a relationship there that has led to unbelievable doors opening for me. So when you take your daughter to the PTA, when you go to church, when you go to anywhere, you at any moment in time, you could be standing next to somebody who could literally change your life. And networking, as Larry has told you, is nothing more than opening your mouth, being curious, and asking questions. So I would say as a solo entrepreneur who works at home, who may be introverted, just start. It's exactly what Larry said to you. Just start. You don't have to be perfect at it. Just start.
Yeah, and I got to play off something you said, Meredith. And I've always had this philosophy: you're 1 degree of separation from your best conversation, and that best conversation is somebody you can network with. You never know who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
You know, you stop and think about that. How many times have we had a customer that we can trace back to somebody we met? I mean, I can see that time and time again in my business.
So often.
It goes back. And I didn't have to steal my neighbor's dog to get there.
That's right. Exactly.
yeah.
I wish I never understood. My house was this big. My neighbor's house was that big. I couldn't understand why that dog was living with me.
Hey, you know, but this is the whole thing. It's about connections. And it comes back to something else, Larry. Sales is not a job. It's a lifestyle. It's just having conversations with people. And I love it. I love it. And that's one of the things that the Sales Logic Mastermind is all about. So, man, I hope you're enjoying this. We only got about 5 minutes left, but Larry, share with us some more wisdom. In fact, there was another question that came in. It says, many of my clients want to talk about how they get more at-bats. What's your advice on getting more at-bats?
Generate more conversations. I mean, it's as simple as that. You want more at bats? Generate more conversations. I mean, if I'm in sales, to me, the hardest part of sales is starting conversations. If you want more at bats, unpack how to start conversations. And by the way, some of them might not be sales conversations. I look at some of the conversations I start right now at an executive level. They're not even sales related conversations. They're conversations based on something I saw on the internet, based on something they posted that resonated with me. Those are at bats. I just know the more at bats I get, the more hits I get. The more hits I get, the more I can turn those into business conversations.
Do you have a goal as to the number of conversations you want to have each day?
Yeah. Again, I'm a simple guy. It's one. And this is hilarious. I mean, I will tell you this. If you ask anybody on my team, it's this. Every single day. This is, and I hold myself accountable to this. I want to connect to one new person a day.
Nice.
One, I mean, so if you can't do one, you'll never get to two people.
Right.
Right? One multiplies. Check this out just for a second. It says, if I can connect to one new person a day, that's all. One. That's it. One. Then I'm going to have one new conversation a day. And I don't care how that conversation starts. It could be a phone conversation. It could be an email conversation. It could be text. It could be a LinkedIn message in a message center. That's a conversation. Then I want to have a conversation with a current client every single day. Just simple little things. And I hold myself accountable to it. And it's just, right? It goes back to old Ed Milet's theory, the power of one, right?
Yeah.
Is if I just do one of these and I multiply that out, I've made 30 new connections. I've had 30 new conversations. I've been speaking with my clients 30 times. Now multiply that out over a quarter, multiply that out over the next quarter, multiply that out and over the year. And just by simply holding yourself accountable to one. The reason why I came up with this is I remember early on in my sales career, I was beat over the head. 50 cold calls a day,
Yeah.
so many appointments and all that. And I became obsessed with all of this. And I go, it can't be quantity anymore. It's got to be quality. So if I can hold myself accountable to one, and by the way, this would drive my business partners batty because they go, what are you doing? You got to set the standards. I said, guess what? If it takes me 2 phone calls to have one good conversation, I've hit my mark. But if 2 calls didn't turn into a conversation, I keep making calls until I get that conversation going. Just simple little things. I hold myself accountable literally to that every day. One new conversation, a conversation with a current client.
Larry, I love the simplicity that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
me too.
This is
And
just,
the sustainability.
yes,
See
yes.
that's easily sustainable, Meredith. If
Yeah.
I tell salespeople, guess what? You got to make, again, it just depends on whatever industry you're in. I'm not here to poo-pooey whatever industry y'all are in, but it's as simple as if I tell people you got to make 150 calls and you got to set 10 appointments, they've already done mental gymnastics on why they can't do it. But if I could just say, you know what? Can we agree? Can you make one new connection? Can you drive one new conversation? Yes. Then they got to win. Then they start feeling good about themselves. Then when I ask them to do 2, it's not like I'm cutting their finger off.
Larry, I love
Like
what
like most sales managers do.
Yes. Larry, I love what you're talking about because success creates success, momentum creates momentum. I mean, it's amazing. This is so brilliant. Hey, audience, I trust this is absolutely fantastic. Now, Larry's got 2 great books, Selling in a Post-Trust World, and as his shirt says, Selling from the Heart. Both great books. You got to pick them up. And I hope you're enjoying conversations like this because it's what we get all the time in the Sales Logic Mastermind. If you've not checked it out, go to saleslogicpodcast.com because in just a moment, we got to exit this and only the members, only the
exclusivity. They get to hot seat Larry.
They get to hot seat Larry in a very tight Q&A. So jump over to saleslogicpodcast.com. You're going to see there the mastermind group. Join the mastermind group because this is just one little tiny little piece that you get in the Sales Logic Mastermind. And it's something that Meredith and I are passionate about. And each month we're bringing people like this, incredible conversations. Yeah. Larry, you're brilliant. You're fantastic.
Really, really
Well,
amazing,
thank
amazing
you.
stuff.
Yeah. And again, our relationship has grown because it just began with a conversation. I don't know how it came about, but you and I had lunch north of LAX.
Yeah, I know exactly
Monday.
where it was.
I remember vividly. Meet this guy. Like, who is this guy? But you've become an absolutely dear friend. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are not part of the mastermind, we have to say goodbye.
You have to say goodbye.
If you're part of the mastermind, jump to the other link because we're going to be there in just a second. Thank you so much, everybody. SalesLogicPodcast.com.